Over the years, I have been testing out ways to make my body butter formula better. And today, while I'm making a large batch for a client of mine, I want to share with you 8 tricks I have learned over the years that have really helped to make a better consistency and texture and stability for my body butter formulas. So let's get right into it. So as we go throughout this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 2 sections. So we're going to go over formula stability, and we're going to also talk about consistency and texture, because these are the most important things when it comes to making body butter. And if you're going to be selling this, or even if you're using it for yourself, these are really great tricks to really help make your body butter feel a lot better, have really good texture, and not be too oily and greasy. But let me know down below, what has been your biggest problem when it comes to making body butter, and what's the biggest issue when it comes to maybe texture or consistency. Now, the biggest issue that I had when I started making body butter was having a lot of graininess when it came to the texture when I was whipping it. And that a lot of times comes from not melting down your ingredients properly. So if your formula is going to include beeswax, which I'm going to have beeswax in my formula, then you want to make sure that you melt this down first. So first things first, we're going to measure out our beeswax, and we're going to start that on the double boiler. So I just turned on my double boiler. I'm just going to have some water going on with your pot, and then you want to have a heat safe bowl. I'm going to be using this glass bowl here that I have. And you want to make sure that you also have a good scale. Now, I found this scale, and I mentioned this in another video as well, but this scale is really great if you're just starting out. You don't want to buy a scientific scale and a large scale. So this is great for when you're just starting out. And it's great because you can use the smaller section to do like your really small measurements that are like 0.008 ounces or grams. So this is a really great just to start off with your business. So I'm going to measure out my beeswax first. So first I'm going to start off by measuring my beeswax. So I'm going to put it on the scale, measure this out. All right. Okay. Now that we have this measured out, we're going to put it on the double boiler. All right, so now that we have the beeswax measured out, we're going to put it on the double boiler and allow for it to melt down completely on its own. All right, so now I'm just going to go ahead and measure out the other ingredients that we have. All right, now, so at this point, we're going to add in the cocoa butter. Now, the cocoa butter is going to really help to add more thickness to this, allow us to have a lot more of a, thicker consistency when it comes to making the body butter. Okay, so now after we've added in the shea butter and cocoa butter, outside of the graininess when it comes to your stability, a really great ingredient that you can always add is going to be emulsifying wax, or some type of like emulsifier that's going to help to aid in a better texture for your body butter. So using like Olevium 1000 or using BTMS 25, these are really great stabilizers, because you have to think about it, like when you're making your lotions and creams, this ingredient is helping to stabilize the oils and waters and emulsify them in order for them to stay mixed together. So essentially, when you're adding in the emulsifying wax to your body butter, you're allowing for it to stabilize the oils and allow for you to have a great texture overall, because it allows for you to have more of like a luxurious oil-free texture. And you don't really need to use a lot. I usually only use around 3 to 5%. Here in my formula that I'm working on right now, I'm using 5% of emulsifying wax, NF, so I can get that desired texture that I'm looking for. Now we're going to add that to our mixture here. All right, so as you can see, while I was adding in the other measurements, the beeswax still isn't even fully melted down. But as you kind of move it around, you can see that it starts to melt down a little bit quicker. That's why it's always just great to go ahead and let that melt down first, so that you can have it completely melted down and then add in everything. And make sure you scrape down the sides, any ingredients that get on the sides, so that everything is melted down properly. Because that's another thing that happens with such a grainy product, is because it's not melted down fully with every single ingredient. So now that we have that fully incorporated here, now we're going to slowly add in the other ingredients that we have measured out. And the reason why you're going to slowly add them in is because you kind of want to temper the oil that you've already started to melt down, because this is already cooled down pretty much. So you don't want to make it seize again. And the shea butter always melts down a lot quicker as well. So I'm just going to start that first. So now we're just letting everything melt down. We've been able to add in all of the other ingredients, and we just want all of these to melt down properly together and be completely melted. Okay, so now tip number 3 when it comes to making your body butters have a lot better stability is going to be adding in a humectant that is also stabilizing. Now with this, I'm going to be using in jojoba esters. Now, this is going to be more of like a waxy, more of like a waxy consistency. You're going to melt this down with your shea butter and your cocoa butter and everything like that. And with this, it's like more of a flaky consistency. I'll show you here. And it really helps to aid in fast absorption when it comes to your body butter, and it gives your skin a more silky, smooth feel. And you only need a little bit, so a little bit goes a long way when it comes to these esters. So you can use up to 1 to 5% when it comes to using jojoba esters. I'm using 3% here because a little bit again goes a long way, and it's really just here to help with more stability and really aiding in having a really good texture. So it's kind of a 2 for 1 when it comes to using these esters in this type of product. All right, so now you can see everything has fully melted. We don't have any pieces left, and that's really what you want. You want to make sure that everything is fully melted completely. So now we can take it off of the double boiler. All right, so I kind of just let it cool down for a little bit, but since I'm going to be using a stand mixer to mix this all up, I want it to cool down in the same container that I'm going to be mixing it in. So I'm just going to put it in this bowl that is attached to the stand mixer. I'm just going to pour this in. You want to get all of that out. And then you're going to add it to the freezer. Now, another part of the graininess, so yes, of course, you want to make sure that everything's melted down properly all together. We also want to make sure that you're allowing everything to cool down properly together as well. So as you're putting it in the freezer, you want to check it periodically and scrape down the sides to make sure that everything is cooling down and you don't have big chunks of like solidified pieces. So we're going to add it to the freezer, and we're going to come back in about 30 minutes to scrape down the sides, and we're going to do that periodically here. So now it's been over 30 minutes, and you can see that it starts to solidify. You can see that at the top, but you see it's still not fully cooled down. So you want to scrape down all the sides. Not only does this help with like less graininess, but when it starts to solidify and you have like big pieces that are solidifying at the bottom, it makes it harder for it to whisk properly. And then that's when you start to get those like little chunk pieces when you're whipping it, and it makes the whipping process take a lot longer. And so we're going to put it back in the freezer. And this time we're just going to do about like 20 minutes. But you want to make sure before you put it back in there that you scrape down the sides completely. You don't want any of the oil on the sides of the bowl at all. So you want to get all of that down so it all cools down together. All right, so I let it cool down for about like another 20 minutes, and I took it out and I scraped down the sides again. But another really great way to get it to cool down faster is to also whip it up a little bit and then put it back in the freezer, because that allows to add in some more air and that helps to cool it down a lot faster. Now I'm using my handy dandy KitchenAid stand mixer. This is really great when it comes to making your like any big batches or just whipping it up in general. A lot of times the hand mixer can take a long time, or just be not as convenient. So if you have a stand mixer, then you can definitely use that as well to make things a lot quicker. So I'm just gonna start it off slow on the first tier, and that's stir. And it's really allowing for it to whip a little bit, and then I'm gonna turn it up. As we've like whipped it up, that's starting to get more of like an opaque color, and it's starting to change to like that more whipped consistency. So now we can allow it to go back into the freezer for a little bit. I'm only going to do it for about like 10-15 minutes, because at this point it's allowed to cool down pretty well. You just want to make sure that you scrape down the sides. And if you find that you're making a really big batch and you find that it's still not cooled down, you're not seeing this color start to come, then you want to whip it and then put it back in the freezer and kind of do that every 15 minutes so that it will allow for it to cool down faster. So now we've allowed everything to cool and it's completely solidified, but it's not too much to where we're not going to be able to whip it up. So now that's what we're going to do, is get the whipped consistency. But before we do that, we're going to get into the second section of this video, and that's going to be concerning the consistency and texture of the body butter. Now, when it comes to the overall consistency and texture of your body butter, a really great ingredient to use is going to be fermented oils. Now, when it comes to fermented oils, there are a few that you can choose from, but when it comes to these, they have a smaller molecule structure, making them easier to penetrate into the skin. These are really ideal because they really help with the overall texture of your body butter, really making them a lot easier to glide onto the skin. It penetrates and moisturizes a lot easier and faster. And they also are just, they also really help to give more of a luxurious feel to your body butter. Now, when it comes to the fermented oils, these are going to be highly concentrated. So they're more concentrated than your regular carrier oils. And when I looked into more fermented oils, these are very similar to the regular carrier oils that you are using, but they are fermented. So like, for example, there is a calendula fermented oil, there's rice bran oil, which I'm going to be using, and then there is also a fermented sunflower oil and coconut oil. So you can find fermented versions of these oils as well. Again, they're going to be highly concentrated. So you don't use as much. Typically with the fermented oil, you're going to be using this at around 3 to 5% of your formula. And with any of the ingredients that I'm mentioning here, you can add them to the formula that you already have. So like, for example, with the fermented oil, you can take from your coconut oil and add in fermented oil. Take about 3 to 5% from that and add in the rice bran oil. You can take from the shea butter and add in your cetyl alcohol or your emulsifying wax. So you can just take from the thicker butters to add in your emulsifying wax, and then you can take from your oils in order to add any like rice bran oil or any other antioxidants that you want to add into your formula, or any extracts. so that you can be able to customize your formula a little bit more for particular issues that you're trying to address. When it comes to having really great consistency and texture, the next really great ingredient is going to be phospholipids. Really great because they're derived from soy and sunflower lithians. They actually really help because when it comes to your body butter, you really want to have great water binding capabilities, and that's where the lithians come in. You're using emulsifying wax inside of this product, which is creating more of an emulsion, and then by adding in the lithians, these are going to help the water binding capabilities to make this a lot more of a creamier consistency and for it to glide into your skin a lot better, giving you a great texture and consistency and having more of like a luxurious feel on the skin. This is a really great ingredient. You don't need a lot of it. You just use a small amount of 1 to 2% when it comes to your formula, and it really helps to elevate it as far as the texture goes. So now I have the lipids added in, and I have my rice bran oil added in here as well. And I also poured in my coconut oil. So when it comes to like these type of ingredients, you don't need to put it on the double boiler for it to melt down with everything else. You can add in your oils afterwards. Once everything has melted and kind of cooled down, it's kind of like the best time to do it. You don't want to take away from any of the natural you don't want to take away from any of the natural properties of these ingredients, so you just don't want to warm these up. So we're going to pour this in. So now I'm going to pour this in and mix it up before we begin whipping. So now that I've added in those other oils, now I'm going to begin whipping it. Now what you'll notice is that the texture, now it's going to be more of like a looser texture because you've added in those other oils. So if it's starting not to whip up, then you can put it back in the freezer for it to cool down a little bit more to kind of solidify again and then begin whipping. But we're going to start whipping and we're going to whip for a couple minutes. Now, I definitely will say that whipping can be the longest part of the process, but you kind of just really have to take your time with this part. Make sure that you're really allowing for everything to whip up properly and cool down. Now I took it out of the freezer again after about like 15 minutes, and so now we're going to whip it. Now it's starting to whip up really nicely, but I'm going to scrape down the sides and then I'm going to keep whipping. Okay, down this, obviously. So I scraped on the sides and then we're going to start back up again. You just always want to make sure you're scraping on the sides because it makes it whip up a lot better and make sure you don't have any clumps in the process. So always just make sure that you are scraping on the sides and you're folding the body butter as you're going, because a lot of times some of the body butter is settling to the bottom of the bowl and the whisk isn't getting to the very bottom. So you just want to fold it over to make sure that it's getting everything and everything is being whipped and you're getting the same texture throughout the whole entire bowl. It's also really just important to make sure that you're getting the right amount of time when you're whipping your body butter as well. I tested out whipping it for 8 minutes, 10 minutes, and 12 minutes, and I've really found that 12 minutes really allows you to get the nice medium to soft peaks that you need, because you don't want them to be stiff peaks because then it's going to be over whipped and that's when you get a lot of that airiness. So 12 minutes is a really good amount of time. All right, so now we have our beautiful texture as far as the body butter, and I'm gonna get ready to pipe this as well. With these last ingredients that I added, like the rice bran oil and the lipids, these really help with the overall texture, giving us this nice soft consistency. Yes, you're gonna get this with the other ingredients that we use, of course, but if you want something that's gonna be more stable, more consistent, using ingredients like this is really, really going to help. Now we have to get into the preservative of this. Now, I know I always say you don't need a preservative in your body butter, and I always talk about only using vitamin E. But it's really great to also have preservatives, I've recently found as well, when it comes to your body butter, because by adding in a water-based preservative and an oil-based preservative, this helps to extend the shelf life of your overall product. And it just really helps, especially if you're making, really large batches and it's sitting for a long time. You want to make sure that you are adding in the necessary preservatives, and by layering that with your vitamin E or any antioxidants, this is really going to help make your product last a lot longer. Now, when it comes to this, so yes, you're going to add in your preservative, but the next ingredient I also want to talk about is going to be CO2 extracts. Now, you're going to see this in a variety of different ways. This is going to be kind of in the essential oil family, but it's highly, highly, highly concentrated. Now, these are really great ingredients when it comes to your body butter, because this is going to be better than really using just vitamin E. It also helps to extend the shelf life of your overall product, but not only that, it also adds in great benefits as well. So for example, I'm going to be using calendula CO2 extract. Now, this is a really great ingredient because it also helps with sensitive skin as well. So not only are you getting the antioxidant help with the calendula's CO2 extract, but you're also getting something that's going to help with sensitive skin. It's really great for inflammation and redness, so it helps to calm that down. Now, when it comes to the CO2 extract, these are really, really strong and concentrated extracts. So you want to make sure that you're only using it at like 0.1 to 0.5%. Now with the calendula, this is only to be used up to 0.3% of your formula. So you want to make sure that you're also checking the usage rate of these as well. But for this one in particular, it's 0.3 for the max when it comes to this. And again, it's really concentrated, so you're getting a lot, and you don't have to use as much as far as using 1% like with your vitamin E, and you're getting a lot more benefits along with it as well. All right, so next up, when it comes to your great texture and consistency, we're going to be using silica. Now, I know I live by arrowroot powder, but this is going to be an extreme upgrade when it comes to arrowroot powder. This is a really great cosmetic grade silica that's going to help with getting rid of the oil and greasy feel for your product. This really gives a really great luxurious feel. This is really like an industry secret when it comes to your products, because it really helps to give you more of a powdery finish. I think it really gives a better finish than the arrowroot powder. So if you can get your hands on some silica when it comes to your body butter, this will really change the overall texture. It really helps to absorb the oil so that you don't have such an oily feel, or even have an oily look on your skin as well when you are using the silica. Now, we're only going to use this in at 3%. A little bit goes a long way when it comes to silica as well. And it's going to be like a fine powder. And it's really similar to arrowroot powder. It's really similar to your cornstarch or tapioca powder if you use that. But this is going to be a better cosmetic grade when it comes to adding in something that's going to take away the oiliness and give you more of a luxurious feel. So let me know down below if you've tried silica in any of your other formulas, and how do you feel about the texture of silica in your products. Now, when you're adding in the silica, please make sure that you fold it in before you put it in a stand mixer, because you don't want all of this powder to start flying everywhere. So always just fold it over and then begin to whisk it. And as you're whisking it, you can also stop and then continue to fold it to make sure that the silica is being incorporated throughout the whole entire body butter. A lot of times that whisk isn't getting to the bottom of the bowl, so you want to make sure that everything is being incorporated properly. Now, when it comes to all of these ingredients, they make such a beautiful texture for your body butter and just really give you a more pro level body butter formula. Now, if you're looking for just a great formula to start off with in your beginning stages, watch this video here where I share with you how to make body butter step by step, and I'll catch you in the next one.